we go. It's fairly early in the morning here in Connecticut. A series of thank yous really this morning. Just thanks to everyone serving in the military for your service, and thanks in particular on this occasion to all the military photojournalists who are bringing back images from sometimes from harm's way and also the behind the scenes of working as a member of the military, engaging in that process, which is wide and varied. And that is certainly reflected here in the portrait category. So thanks to all of you. It's a fraught process. Obviously when you enter a contest, there's this kind of accepted notion in the world of assigning that you have good days and bad days. Lord knows, I have had many of those. Turned in bad assignments, good assignments, across the board. But when you enter a contest, essentially you are saying to virtually everyone, hey, this is my best work. This is, a look I've taken back at the last time frame, or a year or whatever it's been, and I've gone through my archive here, and this is the best I can do, the best I can offer right now. And so if the world agrees with you and thinks your stuff is fantastic, well, then that's a really, really happy day. That's pretty rare as a photographer, that everybody agrees with you. I can't remember a day like that. So if your quote-unquote best work is met with criticism or even indifference, that can be a moment of self-reflection, and hopefully constructive energy comes from that, the criticism that you might receive, to double down and go forward with renewed energy and perhaps a slightly different take, or a little bit of a twist in style or approach, or any process like this for all photographers has an advancing element. Hopefully it opens doors, it provides inklings or thoughts or notions that you can kind of dwell on maybe at night, or you're sleeping, oh my god, you wake up and think, I could have done that assignment better. So that will always be with you, always, so and we'll start with the way I kind of edit pictures. And editing, of course, is a term now that has a lot of connotations about post-production. I kind of have an old school, application of the word editing. It means to cull, to take a big take to a small take to a final take to a set of small and hopefully precious selects. So that's a winnowing process, and I tend to go through things, a light table or whatever it might be, several times. I've already done that a couple times in this category. I've made screen caps and put them into my photo mechanic. They're off to the side, things that just struck my fancy. So what I'm going to do here is just kind of go through this and offer a range of commentary. Some that might not be particularly pointed. It will be a reflection, initial impression, kind of, even though I've seen the pictures 2 or 3 times, it's still kind of, everything is still very fresh, and I'll comment as I am impelled to by the photograph. And win, lose, or draw, always remember, it's just my opinion. It will not be universally shared, and there'll be other people who will look at something I might love and hate it, and vice versa. You never know. The one thing you do know about being a photographer, it's never unanimous. So portraiture is a good category for me to judge, I feel. It's kind of what I do. I'm a people photographer, and we've done portraits in small and simple ways and grand and lavish ways throughout my career, here at the studio, which is our workroom is behind me here. I'm going to head through these and we'll start. First portrait, guitar player, obviously, quite a nice portrait, graphically arranged, background is handled well. When you have lines like that in the picture, it's imperative, I think, to keep them straight. The photographer has done that. Mild, small quibble at the top of his head is meeting that graphic element of the top line in the concrete wall, whatever that is. It's absolutely kind of just right there at the edge. I would love to see that have just a tiny bit of space, some clearance, and not have his head intrude on that particular strong graphic line, which is at the top of the photograph and very visible. Nice enough portrait. That's as far as I'll go. Nicely lit, good subject, splash of color on the t-shirt, always a good thing. Lose a little bit of the guitar detail, but you see enough of it to really know what you're dealing with, and the guy's a musician. It goes forward, and for an assignment photograph or something like that, I would think that this would be well received. For a contest picture, I think it stays right in the middle of the pack. Let's see here. Okay, good information, obviously. The uniform, the trappings of being out on the job, headphones, binoculars, all that sort of stuff. Good information in the photograph. The upfront information is strong and palpable. This is a member of the military. Background is distracting, maybe the wrong term. It's just a blank sheet of paper, basically, in the background there. It's a white, dead bang white sky. And this, and as such, this receipt, the white sort of dominates it. There's not a tremendous quality of light that this particular photograph is made in, so it's okay. Basically, it's okay. Again, a middle of the pack kind of photograph. This is lovely. Now we're judging the military visual awards. There's not a lot in this photograph that to the immediate eye suggests military. Maybe some of the documentation that's out of focus on the back wall, etc. But it's a lovely sense of light, feels and looks like window light. Battered, kind of character-driven face. This is a face that's been around for a while. The design element of the hair and the fall off, etc. So in terms of a portrait, I'm feel really, wonderful about this picture. It's enjoyable. I sense the patina and the age, of this individual. Makes me want to get into that room with him and maybe sit down and have a cup of coffee and listen to some stories, because that face suggests to me that there are many stories just behind it. Where it might fall down slightly or somewhat is the fact that there's not a great deal of information. It needs a caption, because visually it doesn't immediately hit you over the head that this is a former member of the military, someone who had military experience. Okay, here we go. Close-ups. I noticed, in a lot of, or in this, overall gathering of the portrait category, there were a lot of really tight shooting. So, and that's a good thing. Military, kind of screams for it. You got the headgear and the radios and this and that, and maybe decals on helmets, this and that. It's all, much more interesting than photographing, somebody in business attire behind a desk in a midtown office or something like that, to be sure. And the totems of the involvement are there, right? The headgear, etc., helps you tell the story. In this particular instance, the focus drop was on the eyes, as it should be. Again, a little bit of a graphic element here. The upper ridge of her helmet goes in and out of the frame. Not the worst thing in the world, but just a couple of millimeters up, you'd have that completed graphic line of the edge of the helmet, and it might help improve this. The thing that is bothersome mostly about the photograph is, and I realize this is the physical reality of camera work, is depth of field. Whatever it is, I'm not sure exactly. Oxygen supply in the front there with the green sort of decaling on the front of it is a big out of focus element in the photograph, and to my way of thinking, not all that pleasing a one. I do go to the eyes. That's a great thing. You corral my eye and get me to the eyes of your subject. So there's a good sort of almost vignetting, if you will, like a natural vignetting, because the helmet and the mouthpiece and everything corral, my eye and pump its attention into those eyes. Good thing. But the depth of field, renders it kind of a blob effect. When you're shooting anything really, right? You're responsible, basically. I feel like Sister Mary Joseph in 5th grade here, and you're responsible for every pixel. But you are responsible for foreground, middle ground, and background. And in this instance, the foreground sort of dominates. It's the only thing that has real color, and it's pretty bright, and it is seriously out of focus. So that's, to me, deflects or deters my pure enjoyment of the photograph. All right, good shot, good light, good graphics, the repetitive elements. Triangles are a very powerful graphic element to include in a photograph. It's, Jay Maisel, has always been a preacher, of the use of graphics and elements that you find randomly in life, and triangles is one of those very powerful elements. So there's a bunch of that going on here, even with the shape that he's creating with his hand up to his glasses, etc. Kind of cool, the triangle effect of the shades around his nose, the background helicopters, etc. All good. He's bullseyed in terms of composition, which is probably in this instance a good thing, because you've got all these graphic elements surrounding him. So I would say this is a good impromptu portrait out there on the flight deck or tarmac, wherever this may be. So moving along here. Okay, unsure if this is in the studio or out in the field. Blackness in the background, smoke element gives the photograph a little bit of flavor and atmosphere, to be sure. The grime, I don't know whether maybe, speculating, obviously I'm making guesses here, maybe he's an onboard firefighter, having just done a drill or something like that. But to me, there's not really enough information in the photograph. He also looks a little bit like he's gazing maybe even past the lens. Maybe not, but overall there's a certain vacant atmosphere to or lack of intensity and engagement. For all the dynamic aspects of the photograph, the red t-shirt, the smoke, the grime on the face, he remains, for me, something of a passive subject, which is a little bit of separation of logic there. I would think that this photograph, given some of those elements, might kind of leap off the page, and it does not. This is just way too general. Too many elements in this photograph. The subject, the portrait subject, is in kind of a quality of open shade and backlight, and therefore there's really no intensity to this level of portraiture. So this has to be worked quite a bit harder. Interesting, lighting, a lot of drama to the lighting, a lot of, haze and backlight and color and all that stuff going on. And it looks to be relatively sharp in what seems to be kind of a difficult situation. So that's points for the photographer there, to be sure. But I think there's just not enough information for me to really grapple with it on a lengthy basis and get involved in the photograph. I'm not sure exactly what's going on. As I say, there's a little bit of drama to it, but beyond that, the drama stems from color and light, which are important elements, to be sure. But you also really want the portrait to fulfill or tell a story. Face in a place is the way I refer to it. That the context that in which that face is placed helps support the interest level that your viewer will bring to the table. And this, I think, is not giving my eye enough to chew on. All right, posing, the guys, the Humvee in the background, but again, really tough light, very bleached sky, not great light on your subjects. a fun snap. Let me just come out and say it. It's a fun snap, something for a social media page or a quick hit on the base website or something like that. All to the good. There's serviceable stuff, right? As a photographer, sometimes you are, you get away with it, or that's really the nature of the job, is to render stuff that can be used, like grist for the machine, right? And you have to keep moving through that and realize that the photographs like this end up not being a part of your soul. They're part of what you have to do, and that you will live to hopefully have a more sublime moment behind the camera at some point in the future. Same thing here. Very pleasing, wonderful person, dynamic. She's engaged with the camera, and presuming this is in the back of a medical situation. Obviously there's information there, the stethoscope around her neck, so I know that she is a doc or a nurse or some sort of medical support personnel. But the environment itself, is rendered without a great deal of interest. And she is again towards the back of the frame. There's a tremendous white area here that kind of pulls my eye. There's another one up in here. There's one on the edge over in here. And all in all, that serves to just make her like a very lovely, subject, wonderful, all that sort of stuff, engaging, like to meet them, all that sort of stuff. But in terms of pure portrait excellence, it again is going to fall to back in the pack a little bit. Same thing here. Again, this is more in the realm of a snap than anything else. You look up, guys are mugging for the camera, all cool, all fun, to things to do, but will not go forward in terms of a portrait judging in a contest scenario. Here's the thing, man. I really want to love this picture because there's so many great elements to it. The flag is a powerful graphic and dynamic. There's color. The light here on this person's face is quite astonishing. This, I think, is the time to come in close, because the most fascinating part of the photograph is right there, in that glimmer of light that really frames out his face. You come in and tighten up on the eyes, and everything else, like this type of a framing would be, I think, wonderful. You'd have the out of focus elements of the flag, the red and the white, the kind of interesting color temperature of the light that exists in this environment, and then that really beautiful light there. But in the way it is presented, it's a little out of sync, compositionally. This is not doing you any good back in here at all. And it's a really good look. This gets brighter to the edge of the frame. And I really want to like this picture. I really do. I just love the elements right in here. But I think the photographer in this instance should have moved closer as opposed to laying back and including context. Okay. All right. It's fun. It's definitely fun. In a way, I kind of love the information and the kind of lighthearted way it's being presented. Again, not a great portrait, by any stretch of the imagination, but again, as a piece of a puzzle, if you're doing something on the culinary arts, and on the base or on the ship or wherever it might be, your assignment is to record food service and the delivery of meals. This could be a piece of that puzzle as an ongoing thing, but it's certainly not the lead picture and not something for a contest. This, again, fun. Put it out there, give it to this particular, gentleman, and he'll love it, and put it on his Facebook page, But in terms of being a portrait for a contest level engagement, no. As opposed to this. I immediately gravitated towards this picture when I saw it the other day. Just a striking quality of light. Enough information, he's a boxer or martial artist. Just beautiful minimalist light, slash in the back, under control. little bit of glimmer on the shirt to emphasize some of the color, repetitive nature of color, sort of, glowing off of the red aspects of the boxing wraps, etc. Enough detail to the body. Just a beautiful, impactful, emotional, and well-rendered portrait. Just whoever shot this, nice job, very nice job. Again, a photograph most likely you have to do, and done in reasonable fashion, but nothing stellar about it at all. Again, it's, and I'm a photographer, so I'm sympathetic, right? I realize that sometimes you can't fight City Hall. You have to go and shoot something at that particular time that you have to shoot it, even though you would scream for a later part of the day to shoot something like this. And better staging, better graphics. It's kind of, a lot of stuff going on and a lot of depth to the picture, and it's a bit, I'll say it, a little bit on the messy side compositionally, and does not work particularly well. Same thing here. Just too distant, right? Bad quality light, tough situation, right? You got a ball cap that's going to shade the subject's face from the sun. Not enough going on, and let's move along. Same thing here in certain ways. You're more engaged, you're closer, but this element going right down into his head, he would live better in negative space over here. Just kind of pulling him or you pushing him a little tighter too. This guy is unnecessary back in here. The photograph, I think, lives between this piece of machinery, whatever that is, and this particular gentleman. If you moved him slightly this way, you'd also lose that, which is a bit on the distracting side. Very sweet, right? Very sweet, wonderful. It makes my heart sing. With when you have mom and a young guy like this, just great. But again, it's not an impactful portrait. It's more of a family album kind of a picture. This, gotta keep the young guy's feet and bits of the toes and everything. This is an awkward crop. I would submit for your consideration that's a careless crop. You have to really be, look around the frame and make sure you have all the elements and nothing is messy or uncomfortably cut off. Backgrounds are handled. Background will just kill you. Bad background will kill a good foreground any day of the week. This is a lovely portrait. Like this, good quality of light on this particular gentleman, and as opposed to the older gentleman we saw earlier, this does have military information, and I'm totally comfortable with that. If the photographer looped the jacket and the flag over that chair or moved anything. In the realm of portraiture, you have graphic control. You are controlling the situation, and you're not recording the news, which you cannot influence or step forward. You're not on assignment to just lay back and observe. In the realm of portraiture, you are thoroughly and well expected to step forward and assemble elements that will create a powerful storytelling aspect to that particular frame of photography. And this does have good storytelling. The book with the military pictures quite obviously in it. I might have given him just a tiny bit more air or something, or adjusted the book just a little bit so this element didn't come forward and out of the frame, but the portrait is strong enough to survive that. And his face, of course, and his obvious kind of joy, delight in going through those pictures. I mean, look at the man's face. He's really got that, kind of, you can see there's a reminiscent quality, I think, to and a real spark of memory that is occurring as he's flipping through that book. Interesting, to be sure. I like the symmetry of this particular subject and the hands and all of that gathered again up in here. Tough to fight that, because it's going to be much brighter than your foreground. There's nothing in the eyes. I don't know enough to make me care. He looks a little despondent or exhausted or fatigued. I don't know from what. And as such, I'm going to move on because the world is pretty fast-paced. There's a lot of visual imagery out there, and that is our job, is to rise above all that stuff. So many pictures get taken literally every second on this globe. How do we rise above it and command interest? The marshaling of your elements has to be more powerful than what I'm seeing here. This, on the other hand, is corralled pretty well. It's nicely done. Vertical nature of the framing serves this subject well. The kind of synchronicity of colors, some of the background colors, some of the colors in the camouflage uniform, a guy's eye color, all that sort of stuff, all of that is working pretty well. So good solid portrait, I would say. Good solid portrait. Not, as strong as I'd like to be. I realize we can't control the world and when it occurs. Trust me, I went through that. There are editors at the National Geographic, for instance, who would wish you to have every crucial element of and the timing of a story occur in wonderful light, and life doesn't really happen like that. So again, this is a good, pretty good storytelling picture, a piece of an overall puzzle of a larger story, perhaps about shipping out or getting on board or whatever it might be. But as a standalone, it doesn't make me want to stop with it for very long at all. Interesting, she's obviously, she's playing with the Air Force band, and she's obviously, not military, so there's this kind of dichotomy of style, which is sort of interesting. The photograph is framed really well. I like the out of focus instrumentation and the repetition of the uniforms over in here. And she's hitting a good note or a good engagement with the crowd. You can tell that she is enjoying the fact of being a performer. So that's all good stuff going on here. Nice, here's the thing, where she's placed is where she should be placed, pretty much, in this kind of space back in here. And I've noticed a couple of times that I've mentioned them, people are, relative to their background, are should have been maybe someplace else. And this is well done on that level. And she's nicely arranged, it's nicely lit. The splash of color from the pen and the rose there, all good stuff. The reflection is, adds an element. I might even be tempted to move a crop of this up into here, so you really kind of slice that table off, because this is, sort of not particularly interesting. But overall, I would say this is a portrait that is well rendered. You need to know how to do this. You need to know how to walk into a situation and make a quote-unquote nice picture like this. It's part of the toolkit that we have to carry around with us. Is it an award-winning picture? No. But is it well, professionally done? Let's call it that. It's professionally done. And I'm sure she was quite happy with it, because it's very flattering, and she comes across through the camera in a very positive way. Also interesting here too, I really kind of sort of really like this picture. Don't completely know what's going on, guard duty perhaps, but the atmosphere of the fog really helps out, right? Those ghostly trees in the background. She's placed well, slightly towards rule of thirds, and there's an element of attention and direction at the camera. Obviously this person is kitted out and ready to go. And so the overall effect for me is it's a nice frame of photography. Happy to have seen it. It's engaging. As is this young guy, he's a good-looking guy. And everything that's going on there is kind of positive. The longer lens, you can see, I'm not sure what lens this was shot with, feels a little bit like maybe a 70 to 200 or 105-ish kind of thing. But the background is dropped out. And that pleasing nature of the back. See the way that just kind of like frames him up, and there's the mimicry of color that's going on, his hair, and some of these tonalities, all of that, all good stuff. He's bullseye, which is not, in this instance, not the worst thing in the world, to be sure. And it's a good portrait, solid, beautiful light, beautiful soft light coming slightly from camera left. You can see the shadow drop here is very forgiving, open details into the shadows. So whoever did this either put this person in nice light or found them in nice light and rendered it well. Same thing here. Enjoy this picture. It's again tight, but with the military, with the helmet and the gear and the garb and all that sort of stuff, you can get tight and still tell a story. There's enough totems there of engagement and involvement in a military scenario that you immediately know, okay, she's a member of the military, and like it. Again, I don't go off the cliff about it because there's not completely a lot of information about it, or contained in this frame. But overall, it's a nicely done picture, that's for sure. As is this, a little close to this fellow with looks to be something of a wide lens, and might not be doing him the greatest favor in the world. The crucial sharp elements of the photograph are where they should be, right on the eyes, and then there's rapid fall off, so I'm suspecting this is a shot in a very kind of wide open kind of f-stop sort of way that does concentrate the attention right on the eyes, but again, could be a member of the military, could be an athlete. It definitely looks like there's exertion that has been going on, and there's an intensity to it that makes me engage with it to a point, but doesn't make me kind of pull it forward to the top of the heap there. This is not a real effective portrait. I think it falls down on a number of levels. She's bullseye. The background is way too sharp, and the flash technique used here, whatever lighting was used, is quite harsh. And in a funny way, even though she's lit up front, she's still sort of in the same exposure template as all the stuff around her. And it's just does not work as a portrait. I'm going to move along here. Kind of a thoughtful moment, good, again, that triangle thing going on right there. Good graphic element, nicely done, nice observation. The frayed helmet indicates, wear and tear. This person's been in the field, that kind of thing. And overall, nice portrait. Nothing that you're going to hang your hat on, for long periods of time, but a good assignment job. This would be a good picture to render if you're out there on assignment, maneuvers, whatever it is that this stemmed from. Evidently, according to the caption, it was an exercise involving disarming explosive devices. So, and this person here is collaborating with the United States military. It's a joint operation, so all of that is good information in the caption, to be sure. Again, super tight, and does not work. My eye just blows right past this person right here and goes off to this super white area. And here, if there was blue sky and nice light and the instrumentation, etc., was reflected better in this, then you're starting to cook. But here, no. It's a time-honored thing to try to reflect various kinds of information in the big kind of sun goggles here, or whatever they're referred to as, or the visor that drops down. But this is not particularly successful at doing that. It's pleasing enough. Again, a bullseye subject, and in this instance, I see why that's going on. The wings and the plane create that space, so he probably is advisable to live in there. But the quality of light is not particularly stirring, and he's standing there with absolutely no dynamic qualities whatsoever. Nice, guy, good guy, nice, all that sort of stuff. And not reflecting on him anything at all. Just there's no real oomph to this picture. And I want to, I like oomph, bring me along. All right, Syracuse Fire Department. I've done a lot of work with fire departments, etc. As far as firefighter portraits go, this is serviceable at best. The truck kind of falls away, black screen up top, all that sort of stuff. I don't know what measure of control the photographer might have had here, but putting the lights on would have popped a little graphic interest in the background. And right now it's not badly lit, but it's not well lit either. It's not dynamically lit or staged, so it's very two-dimensional is basically what I'm saying. Same here with aligning with previous comments on the nature of the type portraiture. Is there enough information here? Yeah, super sharp. The fire retardant material here, I'm guessing is it's a cool element. This I'm not so sure exactly what it is, maybe a glove or something, but overall the shape of the nose leading into this shape here, overall too tight, doesn't let me breathe enough my eyes kind of to get around a larger world, and I am seeking that. Nice enough portrait, nice nice light. Here's the thing, you're not looking for nice, you're looking for stirring or vibrant. I'd rather have somebody hate my photographs than just tell me, oh, it's nice. Oh yeah, that take you turned in, yeah, oh yeah, that was nice. And then you feel like, going and laying down, in traffic someplace, nice, oh my God. A lot of stuff going on here, some sort of machine shop or repair, kind of scenario here. And she's great, hands on hips, very comfortable in front of the camera, very confident person. All that sort of stuff is going on, but she's also framed with a lot of depth of field, and there's a lot of busy stuff in the background there. I realize it can be construed as storytelling, but it's also not particularly attractive or vibrant or all that interesting. A lot of gray. I know you're not responsible for that, but at the same time, you are responsible for intriguing me, and this stops short. Nice, little kid baby snap. That's really what this is. Okay, good graphic elements here. The coming down the pipe of the weapon and all of that. That's good stuff. Critical focus in here. A little bit of out of focus element in the lower third. Middle ground is taken care of. Background is out of focus as it should be, and also has more information. Another member of the military is back there on patrol. So this enlarges my interest in the photograph, because I wonder where they are, what they're doing on patrol, search and rescue, whatever it might be. So this is a well-handled picture. Again, doesn't really kind of race to the head of the pack, but nicely done. This is again just not a great quality of light, slashing in from the left-hand side, and not enough control of light being pushed at him to emphasize him, etc. And overall, kind of a construction portrait, that you might see in a brochure or someplace like that, but certainly not an example of where the level or plateau we should be playing on for a contest winning portrait. Okay, see the photog reflected there. It's all good, kind of fun to do sometimes, to have yourself in the picture someplace. There's some tiny reflection. Very stoic face, good light, all of that. Again, I think it's rendered too tightly without enough environment and not enough dynamic engagement from the subject to really make me care about it. This glows pretty nicely. There's just enough detail. Obviously, light is placed off to the side. One side light is stronger played than the other, quite obviously. They both look to be in about the same position, kind of 3/4 back and low. This light on this side has got, about a stop or so, over this light here. And I'm sure that's purposeful. I think there's just enough light in this photograph and there's just enough information to make it pretty elegant and in terms of a formal rendering of a portrait, not a field portrait, something that the photographer who created this has submitted that he or she crafted and applied due diligence to in terms of the control of light and graphics and all of that stuff. Did a very nice job. Okay, cool. Again, interesting person up front. Airplane in the back there, and hangar base situation. I'm sure like maintenance and this and that. All good. Again, kind of a perfunctory rendering of, say, an assignment. Go and shoot some portraits of the mechanics that are working on the planes. Okay. And this could be published. It could run. It would be successful. And people would look at it and say, "Oh, that's cool," and they'd all be right, But for me, again, it remains just not a stirring enough photograph to really remember or stay over long with. Same thing here, you go back and forth between these. This is just, and trust me, good Lord, I've shot thousands of pictures, thousands of them. Some of them halfway decent, some of them really crappy, where Mr. or Mrs. Big Shot is like, yep, yeah, that's my bank in the background there, or whatever. That's my plane. That's and we all have to do it. It's a necessary thing. As I say, this one's pretty well done. This is pretty well done too, and got the benefit here of being out on the tarmac. Looks like the moon back up here perhaps, and kind of late light coming up, all nice. I struggled with this, looking at it, because I tried to put myself in the shoes of the photographer. Where would I have put her? Interesting conundrum, right? Do you put her where she is and have the plane come out of either side of her head? If you move her over here, which would be a logical thing, you lose the element of this, which is this out of focus. It's just at dusk and the lights are coming on the hangar, and that's kind of a bit of a moody element that I'd hate to lose, because you're right on the edge of darkness here. I would have really worked this as hard as I possibly could to try to find a more comfortable position for her to live in. That would be a good thing, I think. All right, cool. I think I grabbed one of these to screen cap this for my photo mechanic gathering when I did my initial look. He's engaged, looking at some measure of technology there. All that's pretty cool. Good environment in the background. There is some heat going on the corners here, but I can live with that because the overall situation up front is nice and compelling, and there's really strong light. Like if you look in here, got a lot of light coming off the tarmac or bouncing. You see the quality of light there? There's a lot of bounce light. Whatever, this plane, is sitting on some sort of concrete, which is acting as a giant reflector or bounce card up into this particular gentleman, and that works quite well. Okay, ceremony, standing at attention, color guard, all that sort of stuff. Good stuff. Good angle. It's always good. Not always. There's no always in photography. It's a good thing to the profile view can be very graphically pleasing because you use a long lens. You stack up the repetitive element of the officers with caps, etc., and flags, and that becomes a graphical treatment of this kind of thing. And the photographer's gotten there pretty well. Kind of falls apart a little bit back in here. You can see how how strong this element of the photograph is. If it's just these two and they go, it's like boom, boom, almost a mimic of each other, and then there's this different element back in here, different color palette, etc. But I don't really object to it. It could be a nice exclamation point at the end of the frame. Overall, nice job to the photographer who did this. This is, again, that's a wonderful face, and the light on that face is quite nice. And you can tell it's got, a lot of like soft bouncing light around in here. Otherwise, you'd have shadows from the cap. Let's see, yeah. And I don't know whether the photographer's using a bounce card or whether this is just pavement or something like that. But you see that low element right there? There's a lot of light coming from the camera left side of the frame, but it's being countered or filled as well by the whatever the sunlight or the photographer is doing to bounce light back up. Having said that, and addressed all sorts of nice things about this face, she is floating in a sea of highlights over here. It's a little bit hard to maintain or get to her because this is so bright. And I realize you can't have everything. If you waited for hard, edgy sunset light, you'd be dealing with perhaps shadows that would not be pleasing, etc. So yeah, you take the good with the bad. Overall, I'd say this is a pretty good portrait. The detriment that I'm feeling, or the negative aspect of it, is that the outside of the Humvee remains relatively bright relative to her. So just things to be aware of as you go forward with a camera in hand. The potential aftermath, like, oh, I wish, oh my God, so many times I've seen my pictures, my own pictures, and I wished I had a better picture where they were so bad, I wished I was actually someone else getting in the job, but be that as it may. Here we are. Okay. Really nicely rendered, simple, clean, graphically well done studio portrait. The shimmer on her hair is exactly in the right place. Foreground light, camera right. Highlight upper catch light on the upper quadrant of the eye, and then that little glimmer off the hair to the left, sort of backlit, 3/4 backlit kind of a light treatment. So nice job on that. This was, let's see, career counselor. Okay, cool. Very thoughtful, very thoughtful and engaging. I kind of would sit down with her and have a cup of coffee. I mean, her gaze is very resolute. Photographer rendered this quite well. All right, simple, clean, nicely done. Dropped out background, dynamic aspect to the face, engaging, a certain off-the-cuff moment that I can feel here, and overall, pretty nice portrait. Actually, pretty nice portrait. Okay, so photographer's playing, I believe, perhaps with tilts and swings here, maybe a perspective correction lens, so that uniform and the monument and the lettering behind this particular officer is sort of interestingly arranged in terms of in and out of focus, that kind of play, which wonderful thing to experiment with. I don't think it's hugely successful here in the sense that the light on this particular subject is not particularly vibrant, and it kind of the same. There's a sameness to the light here and the light here, or the tonality. Like there's almost a synchronicity in terms of light being sort of just there, nothing to truly spark this particular individual. Not even gonna really discuss this so much in the sense that for my lights, I'm not a member of the military. I'm not sure what's going on here, and there's just not enough information for me to really be involved. Okay, presuming this is maybe a then and now, kind of portrait, which is kind of cool. Always fun to see, the face of life as it changes and ages. Having said that, I don't think it's super effective placing him in this environment with the screen, some sort of auditorium or something like that. I realized it might be a grab shot. You had to make it, and so I'm sympathetic to that. But at the same time, this is, the kind of picture that I'm sure he would cherish and love to have, and maybe the base newspaper would run it or something like that. But if we're looking for truly pitching our tent at a level of excellence, this will fall away. Okay, group shot. Oh man, my condolences to the photographer in a way. Group shots are hard. I feel for the photographer when they have a big group like this. There's like a million ways to screw it up and only a couple that you can do it right. This photographer did a very nice job. It's not a contest picture by any stretch of the imagination, but to have this skill and get everybody going and lined up and graphically arranged and all that sort of stuff, tip of the hat to you. Okay, Spider-Man. The Spider-Man costume is the costume, so you're sort of, in this instance, you're kind of sort of photographing someone else's artwork, and that's all you've got going here is just, the Spider-Man costume. And as such, it does not, to me, qualify as a telling portrait. And, it just doesn't. Not sure what's going on here. Hockey mask, maybe. This is S.I. Newhouse. Okay, so he's costuming as the terror or horror movie subject Jason. Okay, cool enough. But at the same time, not enough information. There really isn't. I'd love to have this not just be brighter. I don't think it's simply a question of exposure. I think it's just vibrancy of staging and engagement, where I want to look at this guy. I can't really look so well at him. If I was dealing with this and he lifted his head up and it was a little bit brighter and several things could go on, I would be, as the photographer presumably wants, like, whoa, cool, or scared, or whatever, have a reaction. Okay, the synchronicity of color here, or the opposing nature of the color, I guess would be a more appropriate thing. The cool blues back here, the warmth of up here, does a really great thing for this picture. Color wheel theory. There's a vibratory quality to the way cool colors mix with warm colors. And he's, doing his thing, doing the radio operator or whatever kind of a mission or task at hand, all to the good. A working portrait of somebody engaged, it's pretty nice. Again, rule of thirds is deployed in a good way. There's a lot of the photograph up in here, maybe a little splash of light, just a little gridded kind of light or something up in here to bring out a little more detail of what the console, what the desk is like. Some sort of measure of information would be kind of cool. All right. So I'm not sure what's going on here. It's kind of fun, kind of amusing. Outdoors, obviously, and it's fun. What can I say? It's fun. It's an off moment or lighthearted moment for a member of the U.S. military. All that's pretty great. It does not stand the test of time, I think, or elevate itself to, occupy that space in our head that's called memory. It's there, it's nice, it's fun. That's about it. This is this is a record shot. I presume we're back at that concert, perhaps, or maybe not. I'm not sure. But yeah, it's coverage. It's not interpretation. Portraiture, I think, has or should have, the best of portraiture should have a large measure of interpretation, where you actually maybe not overtly see the hand of the photographer, but you can feel that the person behind the camera is rendering this portrait in the most powerful way they can. This is like standing at the edge of the stage, making a snap at the guy playing the guitar. Running in tomorrow's paper. So-and-so plays guitar at last night's gala. That's it. Who, what, when, where, why, and how, right? But you're not looking for, as they used to say on that ancient television cop series. Oh Lord, I forget who played that character now, but just the facts, ma'am, was the famous phrase. And that's what this photograph is. It's just the facts. There's no real level of poetry going on here. Man, this is potentially cool. It's not here, in the sense that it's pretty well done, but I think there's a lot more to perhaps go here. He's standing, just resolutely, like, here's my cleanup mop or broom or something, and I regard a photograph like this potentially as a missed moment, because it looks like with the orange and the soot and the obvious cleanup nature that there could be something really cool here. I don't know exactly what that would be, but this is reasonably done, but it's not it. Doesn't elevate itself and really get into a different class of impact. Love this. Very resolute face. Again, bullseye composition, but in this instance it works. You can see the color. Again, color wheel theory is happening here. The warm light up front, I'm not sure what it's coming from. A sliver of light hitting her face. And let's see if there's any stories to be told in the catch lights. Can't really pick it up, but yeah, it's a nice portrait. The warm colors here kind of vibrating against the cool colors there. Pretty nicely composed in the sense I don't mind this crop at all. It comes right into the very top of the cap and all that sort of stuff. Strong. Nice job, whoever shot this. Okay, this is kind of in the middle of things. It's a bit storytelling. Working on the rescue boats, seemingly, or on board ship. But here's the thing: he's in open shade, and he's got a darker skin tone, so he starts to fade relative to the brightness out in here, and that the eye goes to light and bright. So I am trying to stick with him, and I'm getting pulled out into here. Okay, good enough, but that's not where we want to be. It's reasonable. I'm not sure exactly what's going on, some sort of, staging, construction, whatever it might be. I'm just not sure. And that's, I guess, maybe part of the problem of why I wouldn't actually stick with this photograph for very long. It's nicely done in the sense of technique, using a bit of a long lens, dropping out the background, focusing on him. He's got the graphic element of the wire or whatever that is, but it's not doing a great deal for me in terms of like, oh wow, let me just kind of check this out. Again, too tight. This is hugely detrimental to the photograph down in here. So keep working it. Look at those clouds up in there. I don't know. I mean, I would have, this is me, I would have, I'm not saying it that way. I'm just like, if it were possible to fill that visor with reflected storm clouds the way they are up in there, oh wow, then you really start to cook. That would be very, very cool. Okay. Again, awfully tight, but you do have more information here, and it's there's not a completely blown out element to the background, which is robbing your foreground. And I can tell, we're at a shooting range or wherever it might be. Background here is a guy's kneecaps out in the background there. Okay, all right, who's standing back there? And foreground gesture is strong in the sense of, there's, a lot of energy being expended here, so that all feels good. All right, tight portrait. Not enough information. Nice light, to be sure, pretty light, but I can't tell too much about what's going on. Tight portrait, presumably getting trained or looking underneath a vehicle or something like that with a handheld mirror. The mirror itself is kind of helpful in a sense that it puts a little spark maybe back in to this gentleman's face. But overall, it is, I think, a necessary photograph in the sense of a larger story that may or may not be being done around this endeavor or activity, wherever it is. As a standalone, it's hard for me to really be provoked interest-wise. What do they say in the full structural teardown and restoration on a HH-60G Pavok? Okay, aircraft was torn down, airmen and machinists performed repairs on all its components prior to reassembly. So that's kind of the detail of it, which is great. You know, I mean, it is detail work, and the mirror and the intensity of the gaze and the mimicking of the, you know, the pupils and the eyes with the shape of the mirror, all are good things. I would love to just, you know, if the photographer really worked this more, got me different angles and different, field of view where there's more stuff. You know, they took this whole aircraft apart. I don't know when the photographer intersected with this event, but, you know, is the aircraft just in pieces all over the place? That could be kind of cool. All right, smart thing to do. Place on a bright, busy, landing, deck of a carrier there. The open shade quality of this works pretty well. So it enables, see how the soft color, you know, see how some of this is kind of like bleached out, you know, in here, but you put the person in open shade and the sumptuous nature of the color comes back out, right? The green has a certain power to it. The red really pops in that soft, glowy light. Okay, time-honored thing to do, not enough information. The sticks are absolutely a cool element, always fun to light with some of this portable stuff and whatnot, flashlights, all that, but at the same time, you have to fill that background or give me more to suggest what's going on. Silhouettes of airplanes at night, or it's a fantasy world, but that's what we strive for. That's what we live with every day as photographers, is our fantasy of what the picture might look like. Like this a lot. It's got a great quality of light on the subject. It's got great color synchronicity. It's also a little different, and I can see the mind of the photographer at work, because there's blur to the water. So the photographer, he or she, is shooting this straight down. First of all, very unusual viewpoint. So it stands life buoy watch. All right, cool. But I have not seen this before. I have not seen this angle before, which to me automatically puts it at the head of the class, however you want to call it. It just has good color palette, slow shutter speed for some of the drag. The ocean is blurring, great light on the subject. Overall, hats off to the photographer, nice job. All right, good portrait. Again, really tight, super tight, super sharp, good thing, right? And there's not a heck of a lot you can say beyond that. It's a good, sharp, tight portrait. Doesn't look like there's any application of additional kind of technology on the part of the photographer. So straight up kind of natural light portrait, and nicely done. Definitely nicely done. This, I'm going to presume we're in the studio, or this is window light. Lovely mood to it. It's a soft, drapey light on those colors, makes them very, very sumptuous, and it's wonderful light for this particular man. It really just kind of the way it fades just very softly into shadow. Really nice. Maybe not a contest winner per se, but whoever shot this knows what they're doing. Keep it up for sure. No, it's just bad light, and subject is super small relative to the background elements. Obviously the plane has power as a storytelling device, as a graphical element, and you do have to grapple with it. And it just doesn't look like the photographer did that in this particular instance. And then throwing the subject in bad light, in the lower part of the frame, super small, all is working against you. Great graphic, nice shot, and just overall, nice job. You can see, isn't that beautiful, the way it just recedes and that those graphical elements just disappear. So excellent rendering in a fluid situation. All right, this is fun. Presumably a commander, kind of a person, with the funky sunglasses. That's great. Maybe even the base commandant. I don't know. I don't know the hierarchy, obviously. Let me look at the caption. Brigadier General. All right. So definitely an Air Force guy, and that's fun. Anytime you can get, the quote unquote the celebrity, the general, the big shot, the brass, the so and so, in an untoward moment, in a relaxed, sort of somewhat uncontrolled atmosphere, that's perfect. I'm gonna shut down for just a minute here. What you hear in the background is Callie and Linda showing up. We got a studio day here in Connecticut.